Engineer Gold Mines is focused on the exploration and development of the historic high-grade Engineer Gold Mine situated 32 kilometers southwest of Atlin, British Columbia. Engineer Gold Mines is fully permitted for surface and underground exploration with the 2019 drill program now underway. Engineer Gold Mines Limited trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol EAU. For more information, please visit us at engineergoldmines.com.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is home ownership consultant Ross Kay from thewealthyhomeowner.ca. Welcome back to the show, Ross.
And thanks for having me back, Jim.
And Merry and happy.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to you and your family and all the listeners out there. I hope you have a great holidays.
Ross, Terranet is out with its latest Heloc home equity loan report for Ontario, and a listener was wondering if the 63,000 owners cited in the report are in danger as we approach the new year.
Yeah, it's these, we continue to, here we are at almost the end of the year, and the false narratives just keep rolling on. This report came out, and I knew as soon as it came out, it was going to be misread once again. This continual demeaning of the Canadian homeowner by stakeholders and people looking to grab talking points for their own personal gain. Jim, I just find it so insulting. These reports come out, and when we look at the report, we're looking for an expectation of what the data should be that's going to support the report being written. So when this information comes out from Terranet, we expect a certain amount of Heloc debt to be recorded, and we expect that Heloc debt to be recorded at a certain dollar value. Notice, I'm saying at a certain dollar value. That's how precise and how the behaviors that Canadians have followed for generation over generation, over decade over decade over decade, owning homes. This report, it's staring them right in the face, but they can't even read their own information because their mind, the authors of the report, Terranet National Bank, the economists, the people that they're talking to, the analysts, their minds are filled with these falsehoods, these false narratives that have been fed to them for decades and decades and decades. If someone said to us, Ross, what would you expect to see in Heloc data, say between 2013 and 2019? What kind of a change would you expect to see? We would say we expect to see no change. We expect to see the exact same strategy being used by homeowners in 2013 as well as in 2019, 6 years into the greatest housing bubble in Canadian history.
So, Ross, what was in this report that was so scary for people, and what should they really be reading from it?
Well, what was in the report was they claimed that now the average, we're going to use the Ontario breakdown. In the province of Ontario, the average Heloc taken out in 2019 was averaging $273,000. And it sounds crazy. Back in 2013, it was only $183,000. But for us, Jim, when we're reading this data, we're saying we expect Helocs to be registered with a 55% equity to value ratio. In other words, the homeowners are not going to borrow more than 45% of the value of their home in a Heloc. The infrastructure in Canada that allows you to borrow money through a Heloc also dictates this to happen. I'm not going to get into a long discussion here, Jim, about how we know that number needs to be at 45%. All I will tell you is this. In Ontario, the average selling price in 2013 and the average Heloc was 45%. The Heloc was 45% of what the average home buyer was paying for a home in 2013. In 2019, year end, the average Heloc is going to be 45% of what the average home buyer was paying. Why? Because everybody measures home buyers they're not measuring the homes those buyers are buying. House price illusion is all powerful, and it's recorded in this Heloc data. The precision with this gain in Heloc amounts outstanding, new Helocs recorded, being maintained at 45%, has been ongoing from 2013 right on through till today. It hasn't changed.
So in other words, they're creating panic when they don't need to, because it's the same as it's always been.
Correct. And then you have to look at the stakeholders who are making commentary on the reports. Terranet, what does Terranet have to gain? Terranet is already on the hook for, in our opinion, a fraudulent house price index that they have perpetuated, continue to perpetuate as a fact. Okay? We have debunked their house price index on this show over and over again. They just made a new deal with StatsCan. So, and on either it was last week's show or 2 weeks show ago, we talked about the StatsCan, the infusion of $1 billion. I think it was $1 billion. The federal government gave to StatsCan to create a housing market analysis division. Okay, so StatsCan has gone out and hired Terranet and National Bank to work on their house price index. Well, their house price index is already flawed. It's so bad that the OAC declined to use it. StatsCan was involved in the creation of that OECD report, but they're still going to go ahead and hire them. Well, Terranet can't make money off registering properties. They have to create the illusion that they're selling data. The government believes them, and now the government is on the hook. They've made an arrangement, signed an RFP with Terranet National Bank. The people issuing commentary on the report are the debt consultant. Look, if you run a debt consultancy agency, an insolvency company, your business requires people to become insolvent. You need to have panic in the marketplace to drive your business forward, especially if your business is trying to grow. That's who you're hearing this commentary come about. Negative comments about Helocs. Instead of stating the truth, Canadian homeowners are the most prudent homeowners in the world. They have the lowest foreclosure rate in the world. Over the last 50 years, there has been a lower percentage of Canadian homes foreclosed upon than anywhere else in the world. They only take out 45% of their home in a HELOC. They never cross that threshold, or at least they haven't since we started tracking this way back in the 1980s. Sure, if your house is worth more money, you can leverage that house more, and Canadians do. They also didn't say in this report, Jim, that this is charges registered against property. In 2019, there are many mortgage products out there that naturally record a HELOC that is at zero. So you'll get a type of loan that has to be registered on title. Even though you don't borrow any of the HELOC, it still shows up as $200,000 outstanding, even though you haven't borrowed a nickel. It's because the charge was registered, so that at some time in the future, if you want to write a check for $200,000, you can do it, even though you haven't borrowed a penny today. That's why the alignment of 45% always remains true. You can't exceed that. So this is another report at the end of the year, one of hundreds that we look at over and over again over the course of a year, that is simply nonsense. It is a false narrative. It not only does it do damage to the people who don't understand how you should use a HELOC, it also does damage to the people that are being criticized. And we're sick and tired of Canadian homeowners being criticized. We're sick and tired of hearing someone who's paid off their house, worked diligently over owning a house for 25, 30 years to pay off that mortgage, taking care of the home, to be criticized by other people. I mean, this nonsense must end. Home ownership is the greatest wealth-building tool ever created in the history of the world. The vast majority of the world's wealth is held in the family home. This is not debatable. It's not the stock market. It's not the oil reserve. It's your family home. Because you only have two choices. Well, three, actually. One, you can be homeless. You can live on the street. Two, you can be a tenant. Three, you can own the home. Those are your three choices if you're going to live. If you have a family, those are your three choices. Stop criticizing Canadians for making the smartest move they will make, which is owning the family home. And instead, let's help those people own that home as effectively as possible. Let's prevent organized real estate from telling them to get into the market in Vancouver in the spring of 2016 or in Toronto in the spring of 2017. Let's show people how you can wait a couple of years and rent, and then when you get into the market, after the market is corrected, you're light years ahead. That's who we should be talking about, not about a standard home ownership metric that has not changed one iota in the last 30 years.
We'll have more with Ross Kay right after this.
Cypress Development Corp. is developing a world-class lithium resource in the heart of Clayton Valley, Nevada. The size of the resource makes the Clayton Valley project a premier asset with the potential to impact the future of lithium supply. Cypress Development Corp. trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol CYP, the OTCQB, symbol CYDVF, and on Frankfurt, symbol C1Z1. For more information, please visit our website, cypressdevelopmentcorp.com.
Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, Recycling Trade Publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Ross Kay. Ross, last week it was announced Ontario home prices had risen almost 10% year over year in November. A listener asked if prices have skyrocketed again, as the Canadian Real Estate Association is claiming.
You know, this was really one of the most absurd comments that came out of the Canadian Real Estate Association. Since they posted those phony records because they started counting for sale by owners to reach the records, since they started counting single homes 4 times, which they've gotten better at, by the way. Those multiple counts are not to the same degree as when we exposed them as a fraud back in the Huffington Post back in 2014. What you're looking at with the Canadian Real Estate Association with this statement, and it's on their website right now, so I encourage all listeners, go to the koreastat.korea.ca, and on the right-hand side, you get to select what area you want to look at. One of the drop-down menus is Ontario. You can go there. When you go there, wherever this listener obviously was there, because you can see it says the provincial average price of homes sold in November 2019 was up 9.5% from November of 2018. It's a lie. It's a sham. It's a false narrative. If you're asking me, Ross, is the average home buyer spending $23,000 more this year than they were last year? I'd say sure they are. Sure they are. That's the truth. The average home buyer is spending more. Now, I'm talking about the average home buyer who is purchasing a home in November. That home buyer in no way resembled the home buyer who was purchasing a home in November of 2018. It is a radically different home buyer. So you can't compare the houses they were buying last year at this time to the houses they were buying this year at this time. This happens with your local real estate boards. This happens within your city. Or this even happens within your own neighborhood. Different quality homes, on average, are being acquired each month. And let me explain it to your listeners this way. Each month, we look at the sales mix that takes place in a given municipality. We also do this at the provincial and at the national level, because these things matter to us, because this is what allows our forecast to be so accurate. I mean, we have averaged this year, our forecasts this year, Jim, have been out less than 0.6% across every single property category that we measure. So in all 11 readings to date so far this year, for all of the categories in all of the municipalities that we measure across Canada, the average has been out less than 0.6%. That's how close it's been. The reason for that is, let's look at Ontario, the place in question, where the Canadian Real Estate Association on their website right now is telling you home prices are up 9.5% year over year in November. They're not. This is what's happened. The sales mix this year, meaning the homes that the group of buyers who were purchasing in November, each was causing the average selling price to increase around 25.5 cents. Okay? So what that means is when we look at all of those homes, that group of homes impacts the average price. How does it impact? It impacts it each and every home that sold of the almost 16,000 homes that sold in November in Ontario. They increase the average by 25 cents each. If we look at last November, that group of homes was only impacting the average by 6 cents a quarter. Why? It's not the same group of homes. You're measuring buyers. If the buyers are wealthier this November than they were last November, they're going to buy more expensive homes. They're not buying the same homes that they were last November, which is why housing prices have declined. Housing prices are not up in Ontario year over year in November. They are negative. If you look at the identical set of houses selling last November, and then you looked at what they sold for this November, they would have sold for less money. The only thing that changed was the group of homes that was being acquired. This is the absurdity of how housing market intelligence is presented to people, Jim. If you're a buyer and you hear Ontario home prices on the Canadian Real Estate Association website have gone up 9.5% year over year in November, you're going to be panicked. You're going to go out there and rush and make a decision. When the real estate agent tells you, oh, housing prices are up, you're going to believe them. Because it's not only in the Canadian Real Estate Association website where this number is showing up, it will be with CMHC. CMHC will use this exact same number in their own charts, in their own analysis of the housing market. Banks use it. Mortgage brokers use it. Every realtor in Canada uses it. They use it because they don't have the ability to measure the sales mix each month like we do. Now, measuring the sales mix is one of the most fundamental housing market metrics that you have to measure. If you can't measure the sales mix, in other words, if one $10 million house sells in Toronto in this November, but the highest selling price in Toronto last November was only $6 million, that means we have a $4 million spread between the buyer that was buying. But those $4 million get spread out across all 7,000 houses that sold in Toronto. I think it was 76 or something in the month of November. So if you have an extra $4 million, and that's spread out over 10,000 homes, what's that? An extra $400? What is that? Or $4,000? An extra $4,000. The average goes up $4,000 on one house. Vancouver never saw 37 and 40% year-over-year house price changes in spring of 2016. That was nonsense. It was hogwash. The sales mix was so skewed towards single detached homes of the highest quality, you never saw the number of homes selling for over $4 million that you were seeing selling back in the spring of 2016, and those have never returned. Yet the entire public, every home buyer in the nation, 500,000 families believe what the Canadian real estate and the local realtors told them because they are not reading the housing market the way that we read it. We are measuring a housing bubble. That is what my firm measures. Because we look at what the price would have changed with a balanced sales mix. And everything else above or below that impacts house price illusion. What you're hearing today in Ontario of a 9.5% year-over-year increase in November is nonsense. if you were going to go out, well, the average home buyer in November was 630,000 in November. 630,000. Oh, and by the way, just so we're not confusing, in January, so just 10 months ago, the average buyer was spending $80,000 less. It was not, housing price have not changed that much. The only thing that changes month to month is the sales mix. And if you can't measure a sales mix, you're going to believe everything that you're told by everyone else. Why are there people in Vancouver who are now $2 million richer? Because they listened to us and they didn't buy a home in the fall or spring of 2015 or the spring of 2016 when our buyer program launched in British Columbia. Why are there buyers in Toronto who are now $1.4 million richer because they didn't buy a house in the spring of 2017 when every single person in Canada was telling them housing prices were going to keep on rising? What we do is not magic. We simply look at the buyer mix that's active in the market in a given month. We forecast what the buyer's mix is going to be based on sound real estate market fundamentals, how a market naturally evolves. We know what that buyer mix is going to be, and we know what the resulting average selling price is going to be. We know how much house price illusion is going to be created or if in a correcting market being taken away. House prices did not increase in Ontario 9.5% as the Canadian Real Estate Association is telling you today. Your government's going to believe them. The bank's going to believe them. Your neighbors are going to believe them. Everybody's going to believe them. Everybody believes them until they wake up the next day and they're hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars poorer.
We'll have more with Ross Kay right after this.
Aben Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia and the Yukon, trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the OTCQB, symbol ABNAF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Aben's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at abenresources.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Ross Kay. Ross, it's been 50 weeks since our first House Street show with you in 2019. What were the top predictions you made for 2019 that came true and any that didn't?
Any that didn't. Well, if people are waiting, if people are going to measure our comments about a correcting market and they're going to continue to rely on false house price metrics like average selling price, benchmark price, Internet National Bank house price metrics, you're going to continue to have to wait for our forecast to be proven true. That said, they will always be proven true because they have to be. When you're measuring the sales mix and you know how the sales chain works, these things never change. You know, I've typed in here our House Street interviews. And we did a lot this year, Tim.
We do one a week.
Yeah, look at this. Yeah, you forget about it after years. That's a lot of talking. That's a lot of opportunity. That is a lot of opportunity for your listeners to go through those reports or all of those shows and try to find mistakes that I've made. That is a fantastic opportunity for anybody who questions if what I'm saying is the truth or what someone else says is the truth. It's all right here. I have no control over these shows. You produce them. You ask me the questions. I can't delete any comments. I can't delete any shows. You own it. Those shows are sitting there, right there for everyone to listen to. February 11th, mortgage debt records the 27th month of decline in December. Okay, that was true. It didn't change. That was a true comment, and it continued to decline. And then we looked debt to income worries versus net wealth. You'll notice how debt to income the discussion has been eliminated now. People aren't even really discussing it anymore like they were. Why? Because net wealth has gone up. Socialist housing budget hurts taxpayers. This was in March of 2019. Okay, so what did DC? Here you are. You're 8 months later. You're hearing about rising property taxes going to be hitting everyone in Vancouver right now. There's your proof. Alberta house prices provide a warning to Canada. So in March, we said, hey, guys, you need to go back and look at our call for Alberta in 2013, because we called it before the price of oil had even dropped. The interview's still on CBC. But we also told you that about the bumps where the Alberta Real Estate Association was claiming everything was getting better in 2015, which everybody heard in Vancouver in 2017. These things all repeat themselves all over again. What's the most common thing, Jim, is our comments that the Canadian home buyers are being misled by organized real estate, economists, realtors, and Canadian banks. That is the most repetitious thing we have in these posts, and this is proven over and over again. Immigration doesn't stop a housing correction. That was in April. No, house prices continued to fall. They didn't go back up. It was accurate. May. Bank of Canada poll laws misreads the housing market. That's when the market stabilizing myth was starting to come about. He didn't account for the new homes that were already under construction that had to be closed upon in the fall of 2019. We did. He misread the housing market. We were reading it 6 months ahead of time. What is the difference between, oh no, that doesn't really count. Home equity has fallen $265 billion. So in June, we explained how home equity has fallen $265 billion. You're going to hear sometime next spring when BC eValue Assessment releases their updated property tax assessments on houses, what the average decrease in property value is going to be. Multiply that by the number of homes in British Columbia, and you're going to find out how close our $265 billion call was back in June. Again, you're going to be almost a year later before anybody realizes what has happened. What I would say is this, Jim. Your listeners should the people who want to know the truth should go through some of these shows, and then they should send you questions. Not me, you. They should send Hal Street questions from those shows. Ask for clarification. If you think that there's a mistake, if you think you find one single thing in all of those shows where there was something that was later proven to be not true, send it in, because I want Jim to call me out on it. I want Jim to know when he's talking to me, the comments that I'm giving to his listeners can be trusted. I have no desire to be here giving out false information for free. I get paid for my information. I get paid for my service. I get paid for my housing market analysis. I don't have to give anything away for free. We are prescient in our calls. No one called Alberta in 2013. No one called British Columbia in 2015. And no one called Ontario in 2016. No one. We are the only people that have recorded in the news or on a show like House Street a permanent record of those calls. Housing markets are super easy to time. People never have to worry about making a mistake. If you're buying a home today and you want to know what it's going to be worth 6 months or a year from now, that is so easy for us to do. It's not even worthwhile talking about or bragging about, I guess you could say. Everybody who says you can't time a housing market, oh yeah, really, then go back and check our call. How did we know these? How do we know that Helocs are going to be at 45% of the average purchase price of an Ontario home? How do we know that those things remain consistent over the last 6 years? That you can go check these things out yourself. What I can't say on the show is how we do what we do. I can give you some ideas of how we do it because we want it to make sense. When we say you're always measuring home buyers, you're never measuring homes, and that's how house price illusion is created, we want that to make common sense. Oh yeah, even if you don't agree with us, maybe you could say, oh yeah, that makes common sense. When we tell you we measure the sales mix every month, the buyer mix, we know how many links are in the sales chain. We know how the multiplicity of sales is ongoing. We know that Sales to new listings ratios are correlating, not causational. The failure rate is a rate that is causational. And everyone else in the world claims otherwise. We have the data to back it up. We have the proof because we still now have 3 calls in 3 totally different provinces over the last 6 years that have all been proven correct.
Ross, the one that really stands out in my mind is you said August 2016 in Vancouver will be the peak of the market, and it was so accurate, it blew my mind. And I even told a relative who was thinking of selling a condo, I said, no, hold on for 18 months. The peak is going to be then. And she said, I don't believe you. And she lost $200,000 by ignoring that advice.
Yeah, and think about it. Think about it, Jim. How long does someone have to work today to save that kind of money? I mean, who has a job where they can even put away $200,000 in after-tax money? You see, we look at it this way. Every $1,000 that we can save someone owning a home is after-tax dollars. So most families probably had to earn around $1,500 to $1,600 to spend that extra $1,000. Then we take that $1,000 and we extrapolate it over the next 25 years. So now it's probably going to double again. Every penny that has been saved is actually after-tax spendable income. Then if you take that $1,000 that you save and you invest it with someone, I don't know who's, somebody who knows what they're doing with investing, and you leave it there invested for 25 years, that money is going to have a multiplicity of increases. There'll be a compound annual growth rate applied to it. It's very easy for us to give advice that's going to save someone $250,000 over the next 30 years. That is the power of understanding how housing markets work, how house prices go up and down, and by eliminating any risk that you have, making strategic moves with your home equity. $250,000 for us is easy. We have people in Vancouver who are now $2 million richer over just 3 years. If they took that $2 million and invested it over the next 25 years, the money that they've saved. So in other words, instead of buying a $6 million house in 2016, they go up and they buy the exact same house and spend $4 million on it today. They have $2 million left over. They can invest that money over the next 25 years. Now, if they haven't doubled their money in the next 25 years, they got to buy a bad financial advisor, or our world has has been going through a depression. But the beautiful thing is they didn't lose $2 million. In Toronto, single detached owners didn't lose $1.2 million. The condo buyers who were convinced, well, let's look at that. Let's end the show on that one because this is the one that really hurts, Jim. The BC government brought out that booster program in 2017 when the housing market was in a full correction mode in British Columbia. They convinced innocent young families to go and buy a condo. That caused house price illusion to peak in the condo sector during 2017, meaning people paid inflated prices for condos. We are now 2 years later. Even the local realtors admit now condo prices are lower. Condo prices are well off their peak. Even organized real estate and your local real estate agent are admitting this. Now, they're admitting it way too late, but even now they're admitting. Those young people, if they could have saved $40,000 by timing the market, and they took that same $40,000 and invested it and left it there for the next 25 years, they would be so much wealthier, Jim. Their quality of life would be so much better. The quality of life over those 25 years would have been so much better because they wouldn't have had to spend after-tax income servicing that extra $40,000 mortgage. It is a gift that we have been given, my firm, because we can impact people's lives in such a financial magnitude. It's almost incomprehensible in some ways for even us to understand. But when you know the advice that you're giving a young couple is going to result in them being $150,000 richer by the time they turn 60, and you're going to give them that advice with zero risk. The advice you're giving them has zero risk. They are going to hit this minimum wealth target. It's awesome. And when we look back at our forecast, we would ask anyone who questions what we say in the show, or they hear another comment, someone who's commenting about the market and it's contrary to what we say here, send Jim your question. And in early 2020, maybe Jim will have some questions that he'll pose to us that could embarrass us. I would love to be embarrassed on the show. I would love for someone to scour through the old recordings from last year, 2019, and find something that they think we misspoke on. Because then that gives Jim an opportunity to challenge.
Well, Ross, so far, like I said, you're batting 1,000. Why should we expect anything different in the new year?
It's only housing. You can't make a mistake if you know what you're looking at.
My guest has been Ross K. By the way, Ross, have a great Christmas.
Hey, same to you, Jim.
My guest has been Ross K.
I hope Santa's good to you. Ho, 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 ho.
Santa loves me.
Good.
I make extra. The thing is, I don't leave behind milk and cookies. It's cognac and croissant. My guest has been Ross K. He's a home ownership consultant from thewealthyhomeowner.ca. If you have any questions for Ross and you know he answers them, you can send them to info@housestreet.com. Find us on Twitter @HouseStreet. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. We're also on Facebook. I'm Jim Goddard. Best of the holidays.
Comments made on HouseStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HouseStreet.com radio is a production of House Street Media Incorporated.